Okay, we're going to try a couple of things that are sort of shocking in their novelty. First of all, we're not going to use PowerPoint slides. Second of all, we're not going to stand at the lectern. We're going to sit here at the table and converse. We hope most of you can see us, and we hope all of you can hear us. In the context of this session, what we're talking about, what we will be talking about is not so much the development, new product development as product extension. If you think about Kara Kaufman's first slide, this is more product extension of a book program, and we'll talk about that. The other prefatory remark I want to make is that I thought of this topic because I thought I knew a good bit about the SIAM ebook publishing program, and that is because my colleague Dan Duty and I were asked by David Marshall to provide some consulting help several years ago to help him think about establishing a book program. And I have to say, David disregarded probably 95% of what we put in that report, and it turned out magnificently. So this is sort of a chastening experience for me as a consultant, but hopefully a very interesting thing for you to hear about. So let me start off by asking David, just for a sense of scale, how large is your overall book program, which is to say, how many titles per year do you publish? How many titles do you have in print? And we're talking about the overall print program.
Well, I shall answer your question, of course, but first a personal non sequitur. I was telling my parents that I was going to be doing this presentation today, and my 94-year-old mother said, "Take a picture." My mother and I thank you. Okay, so we have just over 500 titles available on our backlist, and we publish in a good year 22, 23 titles a year, and in a year when we can't flog our authors as well as we would like to, we publish about 15.
And how about the ebook program? How does it compare to the size of the print program?
Okay, it's kind of hard for me to quantify size, but it's a very important part of our book publishing program. Our ebook program serves primarily two markets. We serve the institutional market by having our collection available on our hosting platform, which is Literatum, Adipon. They also host our journals and our proceedings. What's unusual, I think, a little bit, is that for the institutional program, the libraries have to purchase the entire collection. It's kind of like cable. Any sports fans out there? Yeah, well, I'm not one of them. So I'm paying to subsidize your entertainment. Hopefully, the librarians don't feel that way, but they do have to take the whole collection. This was launched in January of 2011. So we were in the planning phase well over 5 years ago with our platform provider at that time, which was Citation. For individuals, we launched our program in January of 2013, and our books are available to individuals for individual purchase on Google Play. In terms of numbers, I almost forgot that. While we do have 500 titles in print, we have about 480 available in our collection, and the discrepancy there is because we do give our authors the option to withhold their title from the collection if they so desire. Most do not, but some do. And then just about all of our titles are available through Google Play.
I'm jumping ahead to a bottom line question, or rather a top line question, I guess. What proportion of your book program revenues actually come from ebooks?
It's been really interesting, I think, because we kind of went into this thinking, yeah, revenue would be great, but we feel it's something we have to do. But the revenue has been steady. It's been 26% really from launch. Well, that's not true. It was about 28% of our book publishing revenue in the year of launch. But it's maintained at about 26% since then.
So getting back to the business model with the institutions, where it's buy 480 titles or don't buy any. What was the rationale for that? That's not a typical offer.
Well, revenue, of course, comes to mind, the potential for revenue. But there were a number of reasons. We did some market research, and we tried not to just go to people who we thought would give us the answer we were looking for. And librarians were actually, the ones that we talked to, they were actually open to that concept. And there were several reasons. One, we are a not-for-profit, and so we can price accordingly. At the time of launch, if you got perpetual access to the entire collection, which at the time was about 350 titles, it was about $10,000. Also, we have a very good reputation within the community, our own communities, and also within libraries. So we felt that we really could do that. And I think also we launched at a time when, even though library budgets were shrinking, money was being freed up for ebook purchase. So I think that helped us as well. So we offer libraries the two choices. They can buy the entire collection for perpetual access, or they can subscribe annually. And the difference is, in some ways, not that great. Either option gives them access to all of our entire collection, including the backlist. The difference being, if they choose a subscription model and then maybe subscribe for 2 years and then fall off the map, they only retain access to the titles that were published during those 2 years, so they lose the entire back access. And those that purchase perpetual access then need to purchase what we call an add-on subscription every year, which gives them the new titles. That's at a reduced price. And the price differential between perpetual access and subscription, it's about 10 to 1, so the perpetual access is about 10 times.
So that tells us a lot about the library market. Now, I'm curious, what is the rough proportion between your revenues from libraries versus your revenues from individuals?
Roughly speaking, 99% from the institutions and about 1% from the individuals. We wanted to have our books available for individual purchase by individuals, but we never really expected it to be a big moneymaker. But, you know, it's a market we want to be in. Our authors expect it of us, and so we do it almost more as a service.
Okay, well, you know, as you can tell by the white beard, I'm an old book guy, and one of the things that we always preached back in the old days in the book publishing world was to you sell through as many channels as possible. And certainly when we think in terms of ebooks, we think in addition to the kind of platform you're on with Adipon, there are multi-publisher vendors such as eBrary and EBSCO. There's libraries can acquire single titles through YBP and so forth. And you've chosen to refrain from them, apparently. And why?
Well, you know, the most obvious reason, of course, is we do require institutions to purchase the whole collection. And so we didn't want to make our titles available individually to institutions. So we didn't want to jeopardize the sales, and our authors really supported us in that decision. But we're also limited by two factors. One, math still in this day and age doesn't render really well in browsers, and so there are real limitations there with regard to who we can publish with. And also, we're a small society. I mean, we've got 14,000 members and 16 journals, and I've already given you the book data, and we do meetings, but we're not heavily staffed. And I don't have the staff in my department that is there to create all the multiple versions that are required for different vendors. So that was another reason.
Okay. Speaking of small staff, I know a concern that you had back in the early days was the potential impact on production workflow and production workload. And how has that turned out for you?
Well, in hindsight, wonderfully well. At the time, it was pretty hairy. And I think this was largely because we were early enough into the marketplace that our platform provider at the time was just building their ebook site. And so we were really feeling our way together through an ever-changing landscape. And so there was, there was a lot of work involved there. But that was time and place, and I think if you're considering doing this now, you're not going to have that issue. Other than that, there are probably two main differences in the production process. Applied mathematicians and computational scientists, which is our core member and author base, they submit their articles in LaTeX. Some of you are familiar with that. It's a software program that formats math beautifully. And so they send us their LaTeX files, and then we do our publishing magic, and we create a PostScript file, and then we create a PDF out of that. And here's where the difference, so we do that for print and ebook. But for the ebook, we then, since our ebooks are available to institutions on a chapter-by-chapter basis, we have to take the PDF, split it into chapters, remove any blank pages. So that's an added step, small one, but it's an added step. And then we also have to create an authority file at the chapter level that has all of the metadata for the chapter. So that's really the only difference, and it's pretty minimal at this point in time.
Okay, so overall, what has been your biggest your biggest positive surprises relative to your expectations?
Ka-ching! Really, it was the revenue. It really far surpassed my expectations, and the fact that it's maintained that was the biggest surprise. And then there are a lot of little smaller surprises, which are also good. For instance, with our ebooks for individuals on Google Play, we found, well, we have professors who want to consider some of our books for textbook adoption, so we'll give them the option to take it electronically, and a lot of them do. We send our books out for review electronically, so there have been some other little paybacks.
And unfavorable surprises?
Well, the amount of QC that we needed to do, but again, that was kind of time and place, so if you're thinking of doing this now, you might not have that. With the abstract page, there were problems with the rendering of the math, so that was an issue. But here's probably the biggest one. With 500 titles on our backlist, a lot of these titles were published in 1960, 1970, and math has a really long tail, and so they continue to sell well. And when we had our contracts with our authors at that time, and they were borrowing art or tables or whatever, it was one-time use and for print. And so I said, we've got to go through every single book on our list, and we have to ask for permission. Well, check the permissions we have on file and ask for them all over again. So that was kind of an ugly surprise, but if you're doing your job as a publisher, it's important to do that.
So what is the one single lesson you want people to take away from this little dialogue?
My single has like 6 or 7 parts, or maybe 8. I mean, and a lot of these are self-evident. You know them, but they're self-evident because they're true. The first is work really closely with your platform provider to develop together what you're going to do and work out as many of the details as you can ahead of time. I recognize, because this was our experience, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and so things are uncovered as you go along. But try to take the luxury of time to really think things through. So that's the first. The second, once you've done that, let your provider know in as much detail and with as great a specificity as you can muster what exactly it is you want. It'll make their job easier. It'll make yours a little easier down the road. Permissions, I already talked about that. It's important that you do that. start with a few titles and QC carefully, and hopefully you can make any changes to the workflow that you need to do before you start uploading the rest of your backlist. Track things really well. Develop good procedures for that. You may have some version control that you need to keep in mind. Obviously, with print books, it can be maybe black and white, but if the ebook can have color, so you're going to have 2 files. Not a big deal, but when changes are made or revisions are made, you need to remember to update both files. I would also suggest you involve the authors in the process if you can. My previous life was in commercial publishing, and you know, we didn't really have to worry so much about what the author wanted, but in a society, you're really dependent upon your volunteers and your authors, and so we really involve them from the beginning. And of course, the upside to that is they feel respected and valued, and so I would recommend you do that. And then finally, unless you're willing and also in the position to sell your entire collection, either by perpetual access or subscription to libraries, don't expect a lot of revenue. It's really a way to service your market and service your authors.
Thank you, David, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. We'd be happy to entertain any questions from anyone. We'll start on the farthest right over there. I think Kathleen?
Question for David. Since you're selling as a collection, all or nothing, is it priced the same regardless of how large the institution is? Or is it tiered based on?
We have 2 pricing tiers. One is to what we call academic members, and those are institutions that subscribe to our entire journal package. They then get a reduced price. But that's really the only, we don't charge more for, you know, Stanford and less for East Iowa. I love Iowa, don't get me wrong.
And then with your authors, do you pay royalties to authors?
Yes, we do.
Is that based on usage?
Well, oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time. I'm really glad you asked. I seriously am really glad you asked that, because that is something that didn't occur to me to include in my presentation. It's very simple for the individual, because we just treat it like a print book and pay them accordingly, and so you're done. But we really struggled with how to do that. We wanted to pay them royalties. We felt they deserved it, they earned it, but we weren't quite sure how to do it. And so what we came up with, and what was deemed acceptable and fair to our board, was for the first several years, we would take a look at the relative value of the print sale of each book, and then we would weight the royalty based on that. The plan is down the road, if we can get enough staff and work with our platform provider to really look at and analyze downloads and usage to pay on that. But for now, that's what we're doing, and our authors have been happy with it. Yeah.
Thanks. If you remember, there were like 3 in a row there, I think. So whoever's next to Kathleen that had the question? Then it's you. Okay. Sorry.
For Peter, I work at the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, which is all about user-centered design. And I'm not in the field myself, but I edit a lot of this stuff. And it's not always true that what people say they want, that they're actually going to use. And so I was wondering if, through your iterations, had you tested prototype products, had you tweaked them, had you found bad surprises after launch, did you make changes then?
Yeah, somebody said to me last night actually that users give really bad feedback, and that can be the case. But by taking the approach that we take, it gives us the opportunity to fail fast. And that's really one of the measures of success of the whole collab concept, is to get ideas in and fail them as quickly as possible. But the other thing, sort of to your other point really, is that actually it gives, by taking this approach, it gives us a better chance, I think, of getting things right. than not involving the users. So fortunately, nothing that's gone through the collab process has failed, really. I mean, products continue to get developed once they're launched, but generally speaking, it's worked very well for us. And it's saved us an enormous amount of time and money by killing off products that we might otherwise have taken to market.
Question here?
Peter, also, I was wondering, did you have to incentivize those users to come in? I mean, do you give them any kind of,
No, we don't, actually. No, we're very generous. I think perhaps the BMJ and the fact that we're mission-driven and we have this relationship with the global medical community, we find willing volunteers. People are really generous with their time. You just invite them to come in. People want to give you their thoughts and ideas as to how to develop new products that will help them, ultimately. So, yeah.
Supplementary to that, do you also do this in your other centres? So to take into account maybe sort of cultural differences or international differences?
Yeah, actually, at the moment, everything's been launched out of London, so we haven't gone through that process, apart from a couple of journals in India. But no, the new product at the moment is being developed here. Anything that we launch out of our other satellite offices are more sort of extensions of the existing product base, really, rather than brand new concepts.
Good questions. Anyone else? Sure.
This is just sort of for the group generally. There are a lot of great examples of user-driven sort of design and development practices, particularly like the feature tree that users can physically print. I was wondering if any of the group has used the user personas to sort of guide product development at all, and for those of you who have, you found it useful and how?
Have you had experience with it?
With personas?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, but I think you're the new expert to talk to about it.
Well, I guess it can be a bit hit or miss because, of course, you're trying to develop personas. It's the chicken and the egg a little bit. You're trying to develop personas for users, but you may not entirely understand the user, so it's a bit of an iterative process, probably. I think it's something that gets overlooked a lot of times because the sort of the practical utility of it isn't always understood, particularly when it's costing money and time to develop these kinds of things.
Right.
But I personally think it's a good practice to use.
I'm just going to offer, personas are a really great thing, especially when you have different functional teams who are coming together, and they may not always understand the customer. And we're doing a redesign of Science Mag right now, and we developed some personas. And one of the challenges we found is that your personas, when you write these things out, because they're usually written out on paper to give you how the person is going to interact with the product, what they want to do, was that it relies on a lot of assumptions. And now is a very, very dangerous time in the market to rely on old knowledge and assumptions. So you have to make sure you have new and relevant research, I think, before you really develop those. So don't assume you know what a practitioner wants in your field anymore.
Very good point.
I think another related point to that is people can come to the site for different purposes at different times. And so, that would need to be taken into account for personas. We haven't used that as a formal part of our process, but I think when we were conducting the interviews and observing people using the site, intentionally try to select people from different demographics and geographic diversity and different types of users to come about it that way. But that was more of a kind of a one-time kind of meeting.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much for your time and great questions and attention today. Enjoy the rest of the meeting.